All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started today. Good morning to all of you. Happy Monday morning. We're approaching the end, and that has a way of happening and sneaking up on people. So I'm just kind of giving you that reminder. Today, we're going to start on your exercise 124, which is also starting on your assignment 106. So I know that time is short and that we'll need to be doing a lot of things as we finish up the semester. But you do have one last assignment. This will be your last assignment, like a regular assignment for the class. And we'll go over that in just a second. You do have your portfolios due at the end of the semester. So don't forget about those. Those are due on the 16th, Monday the 16th. So that'll be our last day of class. You'll turn those in at midnight on Monday the 16th. And then you'll be done with this class completely, which is my goal. To kind of get that shaped up before you have the rest of your finals and whatever in that week. If you have a big final on Monday and you need a little bit of fluff in your time, I'll accept it later, even though I say I won't. But I want to you have to talk to me if you need that little bit of an extension based on when you have your reviews or whatever. So it's really designed for you to finish it on that Monday and be done with class and then have time to focus on the rest of your finals that you're obviously going to be taking that week. So that is Monday the 16th. If we start to back up, there's really not a lot of days left. So this assignment 106, we're going to be building your house from your AutoCAD assignment, only this time we're going to build it in SketchUp in 3D. And you're going to learn a lot about your design when you start to build it in 3D, especially when you start to put furniture in and what have you to see, is it really working or not? So that being said, if you want to change your design, you want to modify it, by all means, go ahead and modify it. There's nothing wrong with making changes. Design is always an evolutionary process. So if you need that extra time to go ahead and modify it, go ahead and take that and modify it. All of this, assignment 106, is going to be due on Friday, which is a different day than I've ever had anything due in this class. It's going to be due on Friday the 13th. And that's because everything else is due on Monday the 16th. So we want to kind of front load it so that you get things addressed. You get this turned in. You're going to have peer reviews for this. That gives you enough time for peer reviews, etc. Okay. So what are we doing in assignment 106? You're obviously going to model your 3D building in SketchUp. Then we're going to make 4 images from it. We're going to make an elevation, not all 4 elevations, just one elevation. We're going to make a plan. We're going to make a section. And then we're going to make a perspective. So we make all 4 of those, and we're going to do those in class in exercises 125, 126, 128, and 129. So you'll do each of those in class. You're then going to pick 3 of those 4. And I don't care which 3 you pick, but pick your 3 best. Okay, so pay attention here because I'm giving you an option to throw one out because you don't like it. So you'll pick 3 of those 4 and you're turning in those 3 as your assignment 106. Okay, so I'm expecting 3 images as part of assignment 106. Don't give me 2 images. If you give me 2, you won't get enough credit. So make sure you're giving me all 3 images. Okay, so we'll go through what all of those are. There are step-by-step tutorials for each one. So elevations, for example. Oh, of course, the web page isn't found, right? I'll have to fix that. It's right here under assemblies, SketchUp to Photoshop elevations. This is what it should have brought up. There's a video tutorial there. Some of them have actual write-ups related to them. Let's see, I think it's the perspective one that might have the full write-up. Let's take a look. No, apparently not. One of these has it. Oh, this one has it. There you go. That's the plan view where it walks you through everything. I thought they only, maybe it's the section one that has the full walkthrough here. Let's look. The point is that they're all, yeah, that section 1 has the full walkthrough. Okay, so the point is that they're very well documented. This is what we're going to be going through, and I will, of course, do this as well. Lola, it sounds like you're here. Go did not come, but it's only Monday.
Yeah, no, the lectures are a little bit different this week. We actually have, it's going to be tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night.
Oh, okay. Well, I was off, so I wasn't looking for you. So I apologize.
No, yeah, no.
Let me stop my share and enable sharing so you can do your thing.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt whatsoever.
No, it's okay.
Let me
Good.
fix that quickly. What is this?
I would have waited around for you, so I apologize.
No. I was late because I had to go to I have 3 classes this at 7:55, so it's I'm happy to wait. Okay, so hi everybody. I'll do this quick because we have 2 lectures. Okay, so our first lecture is going to be tomorrow night. It's with Mara Fernandez Apernati and Chris Roach from Studio Vara. These are the 2 principals, the 2 founders of this architecture firm. Highly accomplished individuals. Chris has his bachelor's with honors from UT Austin, his master's with distinction from Harvard. He has his work published in books and in magazines, architectural, record and things like that. He's won many awards and prizes for his work. When he was at Harvard, he won the prize for his design thesis and all of these wonderful accomplishments. And then Mara is also a principal and co-founder. She got her bachelor's from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Also, before she started this firm with Chris, she had her own firm called MFA Design. So they've both had more than 20 years in residential design, in making, right now what Studio Vara focuses on is more high-end upscale residential living, but they've also worked in, affordable housing, providing housing to, the firm is based in San Francisco, so they work a lot with San Francisco houses, and they're local, so they can talk a lot and share a lot about what it's like to work with zoning and housing commission and stuff like that. And so it should be really, really valuable to come to this lecture. These are 2, very accomplished individuals with a very wonderful firm, very beautiful designs, as you can see here. So I hope that all of you can attend. That's going to be tomorrow night. And then on Wednesday night, we have Tomo and Aikonita from Himawari Design, and they're coming from Japan on Wednesday night. So that'll be very, very exciting. They're going to talk about, what it's like to grow up in Japan, to do university there, to design there, all of the differences between designing there and in, the United States. So please come attend if you can. It would be, really, really great. I'm very excited for this lecture too. And, they're coming to speak all the way from Japan. Well, they're not coming, but they're Zooming, but so like I said, it's going to be these last 2 ones here. Tomorrow night, it's going to be Studio Vara, and then Wednesday night, it's Himawari. So please come. It's at 6 p.m. I'm going to put that link in the chat, and I'll let you guys get back to class, but I hope to see all of you there.
Thanks for that. I think that's fantastic.
Of course.
One side note, Japan has such a different culture around architecture and materiality of things. And I would highly, highly encourage you guys to go to that, because seeing that difference in experience can make a big difference in your shaping and what you're seeing in architecture and what you're paying attention to. So getting a different perspective on things is really a great idea. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. So Lola, I think you have put everything in the chat for us. Yep, good. All right, so we're going to continue on. Thank you, Lola. We'll see you. Well, we might not see you again.
No,
I'll see
oh
you.
my gosh.
I'll see you in my other class. So
yes. But I hope all of you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the year. I might come back and make some announcements. We're gonna do some officer stuff. So
okay.
You might see me again.
Back.
Yeah, but if not, then I hope all of you have a wonderful semester and are very successful in your architectural careers. Okay, I gotta go. One more class, but
right.
have a great one. Okay.
All right. So sorry for that little brief interlude, but I think those are some awfully good speakers coming to talk. So I would highly encourage you to come. Like I said, as we come back to this assignment 106, you're going to be working on all 4 of these tutorials, all 4 of these walkthroughs in 125, 126, 128, and 129. You notice that we're skipping 127 in there. That's because we revisit portfolios in 127. And that is a good place to remind you that guess what? The portfolios are going to be due really, really soon. Okay, so portfolios are due on Monday, May 16th. It's worth 30% of your overall grade. So don't just forget about it. Make sure you're thinking about it and you're actually working on it. You now have tons more work to put in your portfolio. So you have your Charlie Harper done. You have your lecture series poster done. You have your first 2 assignments, which should already be in there. You're about to have your AutoCAD done if you don't already have it done. So all of those things need to start to be in your portfolio. I'm encouraging you next week during our check-ins on May 2nd and May 4th. That's next week. I want to start seeing those portfolios again. We're going to do some heavy redlining kind of going forward. So we'll use the check-ins for that valuable time. Of course, if you need help in SketchUp, we'll go through that as well. But I'm giving you warning now that next week we're going to start talking portfolios. So you want to start working on that so you have something to share during our check-ins. Okay, so let's talk about 124. That's what we're doing today. We're not actually doing any of the views. Today, we're just building our model. And when we start to build our model, we want to be able to use our AutoCAD to our advantage. We already spent time drawing the AutoCAD, so we want to bring that into your SketchUp file and start to work on top of it. So we're going to work through that today, and I'm going to demo that today. And so let's minimize this for now. And I went ahead and I opened up my AutoCAD file from from several classes ago. All right, so we're seeing my layout. Now, if we jump over into model space, we'll see the full model of what I laid out. And we can see all of my layers are turned on. I want to be able to bring this into SketchUp. And in order to bring this into SketchUp, I need to save it as an earlier version of AutoCAD. It's possible that it'll work, but AutoCAD gets a little finicky when it's exporting into SketchUp, or I guess I should say SketchUp's a little bit finicky when it pulls into AutoCAD or pulls in an AutoCAD file. So I'm going to use the Save As tool right here. It's next to the regular save. I'm going to click on Save As. And down here in the bottom, you can see that it says it's an AutoCAD 2018 drawing. I'm going to go back to a 2013 drawing, and I know that'll be compatible. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to append a V2013 to it. So I know which one is the 2013 file. And I'll go ahead and choose Save. So I've backward saved that into a 2013 file. I haven't done anything else. We could start to fix things in AutoCAD before we go into SketchUp, but I found that that's a little bit more difficult. So I've started opening SketchUp. We want to make sure that I'm choosing the architectural inches template because my AutoCAD is set in feet and inches. So we want to make sure we're using that same scale. Again, we can get rid of person. We don't need her. And I'm going to bring in that file. So I'll go to File and then Import. Now, some of you have been working on the web version. The web version doesn't allow import of AutoCAD. So I would encourage you to, even if you want to continue to use the web version, log into the remote desktop to bring your AutoCAD in and then save it into the web version, and then you can continue working on the web version there. So it's just one of the restrictions of the web version or the free version is they don't allow you to do this. So let me go into my folder for today. And let's see here, we saved it. I have to remember where I saved it. And there it is, my V2013. And we're gonna go ahead and choose Import. It takes a little bit of time. We should get a dialog box that looks something like this that says we successfully brought it in. And then you will see your drawing showing up here. So there it is. It is by default a group, and I have no idea what's floating off in space over here, some random view. So as we start to work with this, however, we really need to kind of clean things up. And the reason that we need to start cleaning things up is because SketchUp likes to attach things together. So if we want to use any of these views or we want to kind of directly work with these drawings, we're going to want to get rid of things that don't really add value for us. So in our SketchUp, we're not going to worry about the topography. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to open up the what do they call this? The layers, but it's not called layers. I think they call it tags. Yep, they call it tags. And I'm gonna start to delete the pieces that I don't need. So the topography, for example, I don't need. So I'm going to right click on topography and I'm gonna say delete tag. Now, when I do this, it's going to say, do you want the things that are on the layer, the entities that are on the layer, to be put into another layer? Or do we want to delete the entities? I want to go ahead and delete them. So let's delete them and we get rid of all the topography. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to work my way through the rest of these layers and get rid of things that don't matter. So the roof, for example, I don't need that. I'll right click and I'll delete the tag. We want to delete all the entities. There we go. My no print layer, that can go away too. Delete tag. Get rid of that. My kitchen, right? I don't need all the furniture in the kitchen. Let's go ahead and delete that. Really what I'm getting down to is I'm getting down to just the walls. And maybe I'll save the windows. So let's see, the guides, this can go away, delete tag. And this takes a little bit of time to go through and get rid of everything. It is worth it. The ground, we can get rid of that, delete tag. Furniture, don't need that, delete tag. Let's see. We've got bed. Bed can go away, right click, delete tag. Furniture layer, we don't need that, delete tag. Right. I do need my elevations. We'll come back to doors. What's on layer 1? Sometimes you have to turn layers on and off to see. I'm not seeing anything on that matters, so let's go ahead and delete that. Not sure what this section cut layer is, but we'll get rid of that. And you see we're starting to get down to it. So let's look in a little bit closer here. And we may need to play around with some of these to see. Let's see, the doors layer. Now, I don't really need the doors. I'm gonna need to fill those pieces in, but I don't need the door swings. So let's go ahead and get rid of the doors layer. All right, I definitely need the elevations. The walls I'm gonna need. The windows, yeah, I'm gonna need to keep the windows. So let's keep those windows. And I'm not sure why that piece of furniture is still sticking around. All right, it looks like I've got a few pieces that are necessary to clean up at the end. So we'll get to those and we'll make sure that they get cleaned up. Looks like my elevation views look okay. So all of that I'm pretty happy with. So let's go ahead and select it. We're gonna right click on it and we're gonna explode it. We're gonna end up regrouping things or remaking components. Okay, so now they're individual little pieces. And for the ease of modeling, I'm actually gonna move this so that it's closer to where the origin is. So let's use my move tool and we'll move this a little bit closer. Just makes it a little bit easier to work on. Okay, so before I continue on, I'm gonna make sure that each one of these elevations gets grouped together. So I'm gonna right click on it and say make group. If you want to, you can make a component, but I found that a component just doesn't really add that much value for what we're doing here. So each one I'm making a group. So I've right clicked on it and made it a separate group. Make group. And with this piece, this is actually a little bit more challenging. We could make it a group, but before I do, I want to kind of delete some stuff. So I don't want that piece of furniture. So let's right click and oops. And erase. I don't want those pieces there. We'll right click and we'll erase. I don't want the sink. We'll right click and erase. Right click and erase. I'm just kind of cleaning things up. I don't want this line here. Right click and erase. And similar problem. There we go. Right click and erase. Okay, don't need this little piece of the door, so we can right click and erase that. I have a few little overhanging pieces here. We could right click and erase. Oops. Helps if you select the correct part of it. Okay, so as we start to go forward, right, we can make this a group, just like we did the elevations. We'll go ahead and make group. And now it's time to start actually drawing your floor plan. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new tag or a new layer, and I'm going to call this 3D model. And I'm going to make that one the active layer. Oops, sorry, it's over here. There we go. And then I can, let's see what's on the untagged layer. Everything must be currently on the untagged layer too. Okay, anyway, so when I start to draw this shape, right, I can go in and I can trace around the perimeter of my building, right? So I could start there and I can work my way around. Now remember, every time I completely cover something, I'm going to end up creating a surface. The alternative to that would be I could actually just go ahead and create a large surface that was bigger than my building. And then I'd have a really large surface. Now, once I've created that surface, I need to start deleting parts. And so the only real way to delete that would be to go ahead and draw, say, a perimeter, or remember, I can use these to my advantage. So I could draw a series of rectangles to start to divide this up. So I could draw a rectangle there. I could draw a rectangle here. I could draw a rectangle there, for example. And I could draw one over here. And as I start to draw those rectangles, it's going to divide up this surface. See how I can start to delete certain pieces of the surface. So I could get rid of that piece, for example, and just say erase. The alternative to that is I could take my object. Oops, let me make sure I'm getting it. There it is. And once I've drawn that base surface, I could just right click and explode it, which is then going to stick all the lines to what I've just drawn. It doesn't always work perfectly well. And that's why it may not be the best idea to explode it. You may choose not to and just trace over your lines. But other times it works fairly well at kind of dividing up your, at dividing up your surfaces. So for example, right, that divided this up quite nicely. There's a wall, right? There's that piece. I can go ahead and delete that piece. And that gets rid of that. This can go away. Let me erase that. Let me right click and erase this. And then remember, we can also deal with these little extra dividing lines. And you see that that's now become all one piece. Right? We can look over here. That's one piece. This could actually connect together. So I could get rid of this line here. And we could erase it. And then we could erase this line. And we could erase this line. Likewise, we could erase this little line. Now, in some places, like these, didn't actually separate. So I may need to trace where those lines were to get them to separate. So now see that's a separate component or a separate little piece. Let me trace around this. So the exploding the group doesn't always give you individual pieces like we might like. Like this one's still struggling to separate out. So in that case, maybe I'll use a rectangle. See if I can separate it out that way. No, that one's still really struggling. So this is the nature of SketchUp. Is sometimes we end up with these difficult pieces, which generally involves some extra drawing. Right again. Usually, if you trace them, it should be sufficient. to divide them up, but it's just really struggling right now. So we'll come back to that wall in a second and figure out how to fix it. All right, that's good. That one was able to separate out. But we're really just stuck with this wall here. This over here didn't separate because we didn't draw that little line. And as soon as we draw that line, this piece separates. So for the most part, we're having pretty good success. So let me go ahead and clean up a few more things. Let me right click and erase. Right click and erase. Right click and erase. We don't need this piece, so we'll right click and erase. We don't need that line out there. We don't need these lines. Oops. We don't need this line. We don't need that line. And we don't need that line. So what I'm essentially trying to do is I'm trying to take the surface and separate out where the walls are. It's really frustrating that this is not separating for me. Something is causing it not to be coplanar. It must be the root of the problem. And this is unfortunately a reality of SketchUp, is that sometimes things just don't want to play nice. And it's still not playing nice. So I'll have to come back and figure it out. I may have to manually create that little piece because it doesn't like me. So let me go ahead and erase these pieces just for clarity. And then let's start talking about building up the walls. So when we start talking about building up the walls, it really comes down to picking one of the wall sections and then using the push-pull tool to give yourself a height. Now, it would be extra helpful if I actually knew what my height was before I started pushing and pulling my walls up and down. So that's where the elevation views come in. So what I want to do is I want to rotate these elevation views so that they're standing upright and that they're all consistent. So let's start to figure that out. Now, if I go straight to the rotate command here, rotating this is actually very difficult because I don't have an object to kind of reference. It's only going to let me rotate it like this. So what I do is I give myself a little helper object. So I draw a little square, I do a little push-pull, and now I have a cube down here. When I select my elevation and the cube and go to rotate, you'll see that I can get a rotation that's going to happen in this side view. And I'm going to go from this axis to where it's standing up as the blue axis. And you see that dotted line when I get straight up and down will highlight in blue. And now that's been moved up or rotated, excuse me. When I'm all done, I can delete that cube because it doesn't matter. So we'll right click and say erase, and that goes away. I'll do that with each of these views. So let me come over here and let's create another little cube here. We use push-pull. And then we'll select all of it. We use our rotate command. And again, this time, instead of being the green axis, I'm going to be on, hopefully on the red. There we go. Come on. If you're having trouble getting it, sometimes you just have to move around. Oops. You just have to keep moving until you get it. And we'll fold that one up. Yeah. And then we can get rid of that cube. All right, we can come back to this one. Again, little cube. Push pull. We'll rotate the whole thing. want that protector to turn green. It is. Come on. There it is. And then we have one last one to do right here. Same thing, we'll start with our rectangle. Use push pull. Click the whole thing and we will rotate it. Sometimes you don't click fast enough. There we go. Okay, so I've stood up all of those elevation views, but now I need to make sure that they're all at the correct height as I start to look at this. So this surface right here represents my finished floor height. So I happen to know where it is because I have my stairs and my door here. So if I were to draw a line from this straight out, make sure I'm on the red axis. There it is, like that. Right? That would need to be the same height as this line right here. And in this scenario, it actually is. And it might be easier to go straight from the door. So I could draw a line straight from that door. And if I was on the red axis, it should line up with my door. And yeah, it's not quite there. So let's go ahead and take my elevation view. Let's move it. And we need it to just be up on that line, which it now is. Okay, so let's look at this view here. Well, we again know where that point is because we've got our little stairs. So we could draw from this corner out. And again, it's going to be on the green axis this time. And we need that to line up there as well. And we're going to double check these. So we use move. I want that to be up there. Oops. Okay. Now, if I did this correctly, the heights of these should be matching as well. They should correspond. So for example, right, I've got a taller section in this. So if I were to draw a line from here straight across, this elevation right here, that corner there should be at the same height. So we're going to make sure that it's up there. We're just cross-referencing things. Right, so then this front view here, we need to make sure that it's also at the same height. So we could use a variety of strategies, but we could say that this needs to be the same height as that. But actually, I should do it from the other side. I should say that if I came across here on the green axis, this corner should line up on that. So we use our move. Make sure we're on that axis as well. So I just work my way around and making sure that they're all the same height, like that. And assuming that they're the same height, these should have intersected at each other. And they're close, but I'm not quite sure that they did. I think they overlap just a little bit. So let me double check here. This is the same as my floor height. Right there. And sometimes it takes a few little adjustments. Oh, no, that's on. Okay, well, we'll go with it for right now. So what I can do, now that I have those as kind of guides, we can delete these extra pieces. They're not going to matter to us. I'm going to hold down Shift, select them. We'll right click and say erase. Right click and say erase. And now when I go to my plan view here and I say, you know what, I'm going to pull this wall right here, this surface, I need to pull that up to its correct height. I can use this as a reference. Actually, let's do this wall first. Right there. I'll go to push pull, and then I'm going to pull it up. See, it's starting to make that. And I can come over here and reference that height. There's the overall height that I'm looking for. Likewise, I could take this surface right here. Oops. Come on. There we go. We can use push pull, and we can make sure that that one also ends up at that height. So I'm extruding the walls up to match my elevation views. So we'll do another push pull here, and we'll pull those up. Now, this in the middle is not nearly that tall. So I may come in, draw a line across, right, like that. And then I can use the push pull on, sorry, let me select the surface right here. I can use push pull, and we could drop that down to its correct height there. So I'm just kind of working my way through it. Now, with these surfaces, right, eventually I'm going to end up putting a roof on this as well. Right, but let's continue with the walls first. So this one here, I'm going to do a push pull. It needs to be that height. This one, push pull, and it needs to be that height. And this one here, I'm going to push pull, and it would need to be that height as well. So I'm just extruding out those walls where they need to be. We had this problem piece. I'll come in and draw that in a second. But this one here, this last piece, we would pull that one all the way up. So I'll select it. And we'll use push pull to get that height. So I basically created all those walls like this. Now, one of the things that happens to people is they immediately jump in and start drawing in the roof, right? So I could draw the roof in here. But sometimes, before we kind of join everything together, it's more useful to take the walls that we just drew, select those walls and group them, right? So I've selected all of those walls. Let me hold down shift because I missed just a little bit there. There we go. I'll right click and I'll say group, make group. And the reason that I do that is so that they stay detached from the ceiling that I'm going to start to draw. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the ceiling here. Like that. So I filled that in. This happens to have a slant on it like that. So I need to fill that part in. Then I'll delete that little piece there. Oops, let me undo that, Control Z. That's because I'm missing a line. Now I can delete that. Nope, apparently I can't. How about this one? Can I delete this one yet? Nope. Okay, so we'll leave those in for right now. I'll use push-pull, and when I do push-pull, I need to go down. I need to go down the height of the thickness of my ceiling there. So there it is. We'll go down that height. And it's not filling that in. That's so pleasant. So let's go ahead and fill that in again. There we go. Sometimes you'll get these backward surfaces where that one is kind of a bluish color. If you right click and you say reverse faces, it'll go back to the white like that. So obviously I did not make the windows in this, in this just yet. And I do need to fill in some door pieces, etc. Looks like I didn't actually have the windows separated in this view. So I need to go back and add those windows. But let's go ahead and look at the other side here. I'm going to come out to right there. And then I'll do it. Sometimes Zoom makes life so challenging. There we go. Now, theoretically, I can delete these to make these all one. There we go. So this is one whole piece. We can use push-pull. I have the height of this ceiling set over here to create that thickness. If you're doing a sloping roof, you'll have intersection points, essentially. And so I should show you an example that maybe I'll do that next time so you can kind of see it. So you can see how I'm starting to build this stuff up, right? And it looks like I have a piece to build up over here. I have this one, this needs to push pull. Come on, let me stay up to that height. There we go. How about that one right there? Nope, that one's still not separate. So there'll be a few more pieces that I'm going to need to kind of work through here. That one needs to push pull. Like that. So let's sometimes it helps just build these in smaller chunks, and then you can kind of clean things up as you go. Oh, all right, well, in that scenario, I'm going to have to draw across. Right, and then, like I said, I have to create that wall in there in just a little bit. So you're starting to work your way through the building, giving yourself as much general shape as you can. Now, once you get to a place where you feel like the roofs are ready to kind of work with, at that point, you may take your walls and you might right click and explode them. When that happens, everything intersects again, but you can come in here and you can kind of fine tune things. So you could, for example, get rid of these extra pieces that you don't need. You may need to create lines underneath here so that they don't end up deleting. So watch. If I take this line right here and I delete it, I'm going to lose that face of the wall inside. So I can take this, or actually I could take all of the walls. It's probably an even easier strategy. Take all of it, and I can right click and I can say intersect faces with selection, and it'll create curves everywhere there's an intersection. So see that curve that's there now? Once I have that curve, then I'm safe to delete this upper piece without deleting the lower piece. So sometimes that's a good strategy. It looks like this face is backwards too. So let's reverse the face. There we go. And then theoretically, I could delete this. Nope. Doesn't like me there. I think maybe I didn't quite extrude that all the way. So that's one of the challenges with SketchUp, is that there are little intersections that can cause problems where you just can't delete a line or whatever. The good news is we're going to be working in Photoshop afterwards, so we can always erase things in Photoshop when they didn't quite turn out the way we wanted to. We can close them up. So when you find that there are pieces that need to be filled in, right, you may actually just have to create a little rectangle. Come on. There we go, and that then fills that piece in. And then you can go in and you can delete the extra line segments. You know, I can delete this line segment, for example, and start to kind of clean things up so I can see it as a whole. Okay, so I know that there's a lot to model, and so I want to give you as much time as possible to do the modeling today. I guess I should do a quick, I won't wait. It's hard because I don't have a peaked roof to show you how to do the peaked roof. if, let's see, sure I can even do this live. Let's say that this is a peaked roof instead. Okay, so I'm making this up as I go. So I apologize if it's a little crude. Okay, so let's say that this in fact had a peaked roof. Like that. And I wanted to figure out where that peaked roof appeared. I can use lines running all the way across to give myself guides for where these should appear. And you see that as I start to do that, it's creating a roof that runs all the way across. Now, when it comes to the end, right, I'd have the elevation view on this side drawn, and I'd know where that would end. So in this case, it would go straight up. And maybe if I had an overhang, draw. All right, so let's say on this side I had a little overhang. Let's go one foot. And again, I'm doing this to try to show you examples, right? So let's say I had that little overhang and that was drawn here. Right? I can use this side view again to determine where this stuff occurs. So I can come across here. Remember, I just want to be on that red axis until it intersects right there. And then I want to come down here until it's perpendicular. And I've now essentially determined where that side would occur. So I can go in and I could delete these two pieces if they wanted to. It doesn't look like it's split yet. Let's come down to this side. Well, it worked on this back side, so I can delete this. Delete that. Not quite sure. There we go. Right, so I'm building out that back side there. On the front side, this one's a little complicated because it happens to be on a slope. So I would need to know, let's see, this would come up here. That. And again, these would all be drawn ahead of time. So we're going to come across to there, and that'll come down to right. This would come down to that. And then I can erase this. Oops. So, and then we get rid of these pieces. And we'll need to do a little bit more filling in. Oh, come on. This probably means something's out of plane slightly. Yeah. So sometimes when you end up with a face that's out of plane, if you draw a diagonal line, you'll be able to fill it in, but that'll leave a diagonal line there, which is always a little unfortunate. I'll have to sort out, it's hard to do it live. I'll have to sort out why that's slightly out of plane. But essentially, I'm building in. Oh, come on. Yeah, something's off. Yeah, well, I'll have to figure out the end. It's partly because that's on a slope, but that's how you would go about building, right, the sloping roof on top of your building rather than just the flat roof like I was drawing. So it's just a different style, but you're going to be using those elevation views to create that shape, okay? So like I said, I want you to spend your time today modeling. The further you get, the better. You don't have to do every piece of detail. Try to do as much as you can. Remember, like, for example, the elevation. We're going to start with the elevation. You're only doing an elevation view of one side of the building. So you don't need all four sides. So try to finish an elevation of one side, and you can safely ignore the backside because you're not going to end up seeing it. So you can control what's seen. A couple of the notes in SketchUp. You are free to use the 3D warehouse. So if we go over here into components, these are component samplers, but we can actually go into 3D warehouse and look for something. So if you wanted a chair, for example, you can search 3D warehouse for a chair, and you're free to use those kinds of things. So here's a chair, maybe I want that. And it's massive because the people didn't scale it correctly. So let's get rid of that one. Let's try a different one. There we go. That one's about the right size. So we could drop, something like that into the view. There's nothing wrong with using those to help populate your building. So that's legal in terms of the assignment. Okay. We're not worried about materials. We're going to be doing our collage work and our material work in Photoshop. So you can safely ignore materials for right now. But really today is about building as much of this as you can. So I'm going to let you guys go a few minutes early because I want you to start focusing on this. During check-ins today and on Wednesday, we're going to cover any remaining AutoCAD issues. I know there was a few people that messaged me over the weekend with a few AutoCAD issues. We'll cover any of that. Any questions you might have in SketchUp, anything you want to go over, we'll do that as well. If you start working on this and you don't run into a problem in SketchUp until, say, tomorrow, but your check-in was today, don't be afraid to come back to check in on Wednesday and get a little bit of extra help, okay? So with that, I'll ask to see if anybody has any global questions, and if not, I'll let you go, and we'll have our first check-in at 9.
Yeah, I did have a question about SketchUp.
Sure, Jackson, go ahead.
So when I go to edit the style before I export it to Photoshop,
Yep.
It says I'm only allowed to edit it if I have the upgraded version of SketchUp.
Are you using the remote desktop, or are you using the like the free version on your computer or whatever?
I'm just using the free version.
Okay, so in that case, yes, it locks you out of it, so you won't be able to do all the same exports that I do. You probably can get the bulk of it out the same. So just don't go in and edit the style anymore. Just give me an export of that style. So you'll do an export of like the hidden line style, the pen style, the airbrush style. And were you able on the shadows? I think with the shadows, you can still export it with the shadows because you can turn them on, but you're going to end up with lines. It won't just be the shadows.
Okay, and you want the shadows
you can still do it. It's just not separated out quite as much.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, so if you want to come to the check-in today, we can go through it specifically on that. But it's a little bit different when you use the free version.
For sure. Yeah, I'll try to figure it out. Thank you.
No problem. But recognize, of course, that they are going to be different. They won't be the same.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right. Any other global questions? No? All right. Perfect. Well, I'll see you during your check-ins today, and I'll see you back on Wednesday.